Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Management, a VUCA perspective. We are discussing core concepts, and I am your friend and tour guide on this amazing and exhilarating journey, Siddhi Bhattacharyya. Now, we've been discussing a lot about pricing in the latest edition, and this is the second part of that entire mini series. We've already discussed various formats, how prices have been actually managed, what perceptions they drive in consumers' minds, and now we get into the other aspects of pricing where we look deeper into how product mixes, etc., work for the marketers best and their planning requirements as we look deeper into the entire pricing scenario. So, in the words of one of the best uh, founders you've seen around in recent times, Amazon's founder Jeff Bezos, he says that lowering price is easy, being able to afford to actually lower that price is hard. And that is a big challenge because the kind of products you have, the kind of revenues you need from them, the objectives you want to meet, all of these become challenges in creating something which creates the sense of satisfaction. So, hence, satisfaction in the purchase scenario or the purchase cycle is the feeling of having made the right decision. If you do not, then there is something that sets in called buyer's remorse, which is an afterthought mechanism, if you will, after the entire process of purchasing is concluded. And this is important because satiating the consumer's instinct of having made the right price point decision, that is key to satisfaction. And that is also there to ensure there's little scope of this remorse setting in after your purchase is done. So, how do you chase desirability? The price and promotion angle part 2 is what we are discussing today. Now, we start with product mix pricing strategies for marketers because today marketers are fighting fiercely in their competitive marketplaces, and strategic product mix pricing is essential for business to become sustainable profitably. And this is a sophisticated approach and moves beyond optimizing individual prices to develop an integrated pricing architecture, because a lot of things come into play. You will play down certain prices, you will increase prices elsewhere, and that will help you maximize the value across your entire product portfolio. And here you will see battle tested pricing methodologies and their strategic applications, highlighting how ideal implementation contexts are, what are the critical pitfalls that you need to avoid, and effective responses so that your competitors can't get the better of you. You are able to withstand that pressure that threaten your market position. Pricing incentives serve as powerful levers for growth, and that is what you will be able to maximize, and you'll get practical research validated frameworks which will fundamentally transform how your organization approaches these high impact pricing decisions. Let's understand what product mix based pricing really is. Now, first and foremost, you need to realize that there are complex interrelationships when it comes to the entire set of products that you're providing, and it requires that product mix pricing understand and navigate these intricate connections between the portfolio items that you have on offer. Products have a share of critical resources. When you go into production, you will need inputs, you will have factory time on the assembly line, you will have packaging requirements, and you will get a logistical journey at the end of things. So, all of these things actually help create budgets, and sales teams use these and create interdependencies so that they can create strategic balancing for optimal financial outcomes, the objectives that the organization wants you to achieve. There are certain competitive dynamics which come into play, how your products are pegged against what is available elsewhere in the market, how your competitors have priced their products vis-a-vis yours, and that actually piles up in the competitive ecosystem. Here, you're looking at customizing your pricing approaches. You need to understand competitor positioning, market share trends of how your shares work versus the others, and you anticipate certain responses to your pricing strategies because that becomes important. It is crucial for both the profitability aspect and staying relevant in the market. So, all of these factors come into play. And then you have to optimize your portfolio. You may have to let go of certain products which aren't doing that well. They may be great products, but their efficiency in terms of getting the right kind of value for you may not be working out. So, here this often requires strategically positioning certain products at lower margins and drive demand for the complementary higher margin offerings. And here you create a synergistic product ecosystem. So, you have an entry ticket item and a higher value item which is a topical buy, and you enhance the total returns that your organization can gain out of the exercise. You achieve this pricing excellence across your product mix by using that sophisticated analysis and your in-depth customer value assessment, because you have to constantly monitor how your customer, your end consumer is responding to these, and you have to have market intelligence as to who else is doing what. And so, therefore, you have to differentiate and methodically refine your pricing architecture and look at evolutions compared to what others are putting out there and how you are going to not be reactive but proactive in the entire scenario, and thereby reach your final commercial objectives. So, this is the basic understanding of product mix pricing. There are certain spaces where you need to understand how these work. There is a loss leader pricing strategy. So, here there is a strategic price reduction at the core. So, you are actually looking as if you are losing money on this. Retailers deliberately price high demand products below cost to generate substantial store traffic. The moment you have that captive audience come in, you can sell them more stuff, and you strategically bank on these customers, making additional full margin items that offset the initial discount, because that discount is more of a hook and a come hither for the customer to enter your space. You have to have a profitability calculation. Here, success hinges on a critical formula. The combined revenue from increased foot traffic and complementary purchases significantly must exceed the deliberate margin sacrifice that you are making and discount your loss leader products completely. Then there are brand image concerns. So, if you are seen as a cheaper alternative, that actually makes it harder for you to price premium products there. So, the mindset strongly opposes that premium products position as loss leaders, because you are showcasing an aggressive discounting, and therefore, the moment you put up something premium, there is a serious disconnect in the consumer's mind, and there is a perceived quality question mark which is also raised. So, therefore, you have to carefully craft the brand positioning and create tension amongst the competing retail channels, so that you are able to keep these things going forward. And also, there is the external regulatory context. Manufacturers have historically lobbied for minimum price legislation to curtail this practice, and there are protective regulations which have been dismantled to foster market competition, price transparency, and ultimately greater consumer value, because at the end of the day, if there is a competitive environment, the consumer benefits out of it. Here, there are certain ways to go about it. There is optional featured pricing. So, typically works best in automotive sectors, where you have a core product which is your base product, and then you add options on top of it and layer the pricing as you go up with the addition of various frills and separate add-ons, as we call them. So, these increase that particular ability to price your product higher. This approach establishes clear value tiers. These value tiers require marketers to clearly distinguish which elements belong in the standard package versus what is generating the additional revenue, such as premium upgrades, and it ultimately maximizes both market reach and the profit potential for that particular product or brand. An example here would be restaurants as well. Restaurants masterfully implement this strategy by setting competitive food prices while applying substantial profit margins to beverages. Beverages become their money spinner, and this typically works better with alcoholic drinks. Here, food covers the operational costs, but the high margin beverages define the overall profitability for the restaurant. And they explain why servers systematically prioritize taking drink orders and making specific recommendations for what particular drinks somebody should order. So, this enhances the dining experience and gives the diner a chance to splurge. The moment they splurge more on the drink, automatically it is more money in the bank for the restaurant. And there is a reverse approach as well. Some establishments strategically price alcoholic beverages lower to attract customers, because here the food is not the primary. They want people to come, sit down, chill, have their booze, and they generate the primary profits through the food sales in this case, because you just can't have alcohols. You need something to munch upon. The munches are what give you the money in this case. This tactical variation depends on precise demographic targeting. Yes, you have to understand how the people you're trying to bring in will actually operate in this particular case. And you can look at competitive analysis, which will actually give you that indication, and that helps the establishment's distinctive value proposition and tells you which specific market segment to tap into and how best to deal with that particular conversation. Then there are certain cases where you've got a captive product. Now, there the pricing is dependent on what you sell after the captive product is already there with the customer. Gillette has done this very famously through their razor and blades model. Companies offer their primary products such as razors at the cost and below at times, while generating substantial profits from essential complementary items, the blades. This creates a dependable recurring revenue stream and significantly outperforms the initial purchase value. In a similar way, you will have photocopiers which sell you the machine at a cost, but then toner, service, a variety of other things that you need to have from time to time is where you make the money. If you make it too high, though, remember that there is always the grey market. And typically in countries like India, where the grey market thrives, the grey market is just waiting for such an opportunity to jump in and take a certain share out of that little toner or service segment, that stream of money making for the organization. Now, there are entertainment venues which do this. Theaters and concert venues set accessible ticket prices that extract the premium profits from concessions and merchandise which are available at the premises. This strategy capitalizes on a captive audience, because now once they are at the theater, they are in the venue and they can't go out much. And here you've got limited alternatives. So, you transform each attendee into a higher value customer, because the overall spend is also considering what they spend inside. When you've gone at a 200 or 300 rupee ticket to watch a movie, you're spending $1,000 on your family's food, and that automatically gets you the additional money you need from that particular family coming and watching a show. Mobile devices also come into this place. Telecommunications companies offer subsidized or free smartphones as bundles, and here customers commit to long-term rental service agreements. This approach guarantees a steady revenue through monthly service fees and upgrades as people go along, and effectively transforms a one-time hardware sale where they would have just bought a phone, and this in turn becomes years of predictable income, because now they're bought in and married into that particular usage format. There are the risks, like we were speaking of excessive pricing in this case. Here, if you've got inflated pricing on the aftermarket products, this can backfire and the grey market starts to come into play. And this drives customers towards the third party alternatives, the grey market. There is a robust market for printer cartridge refills, and this is typically priced 20 to 30% below the market manufacturer's options. This exemplifies how consumer resistance emerges when captive pricing becomes overly aggressive. Then there is a two-part pricing strategy. Here there is a fixed fee and a variable usage fee which work hand in hand. So the initial payment grants access to the product or service offering, and the variable fee are additional charges that scale directly with the consumption levels once you're at the venue. The profit is optimized after creating a calibrated balance between the access and the usage based pricing, so that one does not seem too overbearing over the other. The two-part pricing demands meticulous strategic calibration, functioning as a sophisticated cousin to captive product approaches. Here, the fixed component must be accessible to encourage wide adoption. So, it must be just within access so that you can get into that place, and the usage fees are structured to drive sustained profitability. Don't get too greedy, but ensure that you get them to keep coming back for more. This versatile model spans diverse sectors, from telecom companies offering the base plans and then additional data charges, and entertainment venues doing this, combining with admission fees with premium experience costs. Clubs are a great example to understand how this works. Now, the success of two-part pricing hinges on achieving the ideal balance. It is between the fixed fees, which deter initial adoption, while inflated usage rates suppress ongoing consumption. Implementing this strategy effectively requires comprehensive analysis of consumption patterns and how prices are sensitive across the customer segments. When you do this right, the pricing model simultaneously maximizes the customer acquisition rates and at the same point in time creates a powerful engine for sustainable revenue growth, because people want to come back and want to continue spending there. Then there is byproduct pricing. Now, here you've got a main production, which is the primary manufacturing process that creates valuable byproducts as well. The byproduct is recovered and the secondary materials are captured and further processed. You create a revenue stream here as the byproducts get sold in alternative markets, and you can do a price flexibility. Byproduct pricing enables the competitive primary product positioning. Byproduct pricing strategically transforms whatever manufacturing residuals are there into lucrative revenue streams. This has evolved nowadays when we talk about sustainability in a big way. To give you something called the circular economy. So, where one person's waste becomes another person's input product. So, therefore, you simultaneously eliminate the disposal, because whosoever has your waste as their input product will actually come to your doorstep to collect the waste, and you create better environmental sustainability like we were speaking of. And this approach enables organizations to optimize their pricing strategies for their core products and establish supplementary profit centers from materials which were previously designated as waste. And this creates a compelling competitive advantage in price sensitive market segments, because you are able to manage with maybe lesser people coming and you take a premium. So, because you have got revenue coming in from another source to offset the lesser number of people buying your product. Australia's CSR, which is Colonial Sugar Refining Company, not the corporate social responsibility. This exemplifies this strategy's transformative potential. They began as an ingenious solution to repurpose sugarcane fiber waste, and wallboard manufacturing became the resultant of it, and this became a comprehensive business metamorphosis for them. They methodologically commercialized its byproducts, and CSR transcended its origins to become a leading building materials enterprise and showcased how they monetize the waste stream to become the foundation for profound business reinvention and sustainable growth. So, this is not something which is too difficult to understand, but not a lot of people have actually applied their thinking towards this. This works very well for entrepreneurs who are setting up. So, startups also need to look at this particular angle in a very, very strong way. It will help them create additional revenue streams for their organization. Now, you've got product bundling, which gives you another pricing model. Now, here you've got pure bundling, which gives you products available exclusively as a complete package and no other way can you get it. Then there is mixed bundling, where products are offered individually, or if you buy them together, you get a discounted package. And then you can actually do a customized bundling. So, you can tailor the combination. It can become your bespoke pickup from the entire available buffet of products, and basis your customer preference, you will be able to create your own takeaway. So, here pure bundling strategies require customers to purchase products exclusively as one unified package, because at the end of the day you will get that unified package and no other way is there any combination that is possible to be taken. These could be a la carte options. However, automotive aftermarket providers exemplify this approach by combining tire and wheel protection with paintless dent repair into a comprehensive service program, which cannot be separated. Similarly, talent agencies leverage pure bundling when requiring film studios to accept multiple represent artists as a single package. Yes, they give them a better price for it, but it creates strategic tied sales that maximize the representation value while limiting the client's selectivity. In the case of mixed bundling, both customers and individual purchases, they have that flexibility to combine the packaged options the way they see fit. And here substantial discounts can be given to incentivize comprehensive purchases. Theatre companies do this masterfully and create season subscriptions and price them significantly below the cumulative cost of individual performances. So, you actually get a number of performances for which you can buy a season pass. For mixed bundling, you may get optimal results by the price reduction, which creates compelling perceived value and motivates customers to buy items beyond their initial purchasing intention, because you buy them in bulk, so you've got a discount. Yes, you can spend the money is what you feel, and then you go ahead and buy. And ultimately, the total revenue and market penetration goes up as a result. And there is something called unbundling also, which is something you need to understand the psychology of. Now, the customer comes in and they have a request. Buyers walking into stores and they want certain unwanted components which they may have or they feel is unnecessary, and they want the entire bundle to be broken up and the unwanted components removed, and the price therefore fair price to be reduced at a lower point. Now, you have to value the assessment of the entire scenario and look at supplier calculating the cost savings and actually seeing how much they can reduce for the component removal. Then this enters a barter phase, because now earlier what you had as a set menu has suddenly changed. So, the price negotiation comes in, your partial discount is offered while maintaining the right kind of profit margin, which requires a back of book calculation probably right there. Now, customers seek less than the complete package and they want this unbundling, or at times they want even rebundling options, and asked in exchange for this they want price concessions. Some savvy suppliers transform these requests into profit enhancing opportunities. For example, when a supplier eliminates unwanted delivery services, they actually may have to pay a cost of $100 for that. They offer the customer an $80 discount and both parties benefit substantially. So, instead of adding that $100, they take away $80 and the $20 is still made by the organization. The customer reduces their overall expenditure by $80. So, they also feel that they have received something at the end of the transaction. Now, the idea here is to meticulously identify which bundle components deliver the genuine value. This comes from experience and handling a lot of products and customer requirements of such nature, and you can look at various customer segments versus those who merely accumulate costs without corresponding benefits. And here truly effective pricing frameworks incorporate deliberate flexibility. You have that in nature, you don't talk about it, but when asked for you provide it, and accommodate diverse customer preferences while simultaneously safeguarding and in fact often enhancing the overall profitability across the customer portfolio. And the more important part here to understand is the psychology bit. Once the unbundling thing has worked for a certain customer, they will have found that they have had their way with the organization. Once they go home, they are going to talk to others and they are going to tell them, I struck a good deal. That is good news for you because you will get more people seeking a good deal. So you need to be open to these perspectives. Now, when you look at initiating these strategic price cuts, how do you go about it? Because this is challenging itself. What Jeff Bezos' example spoke of is what is captured here. Compelling business conditions require certain strategic price reductions. Now, if you've got excess production capacity at certain point in time, this is primarily why this actually ends up. And organizations cannot generate additional demand because they are enhancing their marketing efforts, or they're putting in some product innovation, or they want some alternative strategy. So they are precisely calculating the price adjustment, and this has become essential to efficiently utilize their idle capacity because they need the factory to go. Hammer and tongs standing there is not making money. So they need to get this done for operational efficiency. When such a thing comes by, they strategically implement selective price reductions to establish their market dominance, because now those products will have quicker offtakes of the shelves, and through cost leadership they are capitalizing on existing operational efficiencies or initiating calculated price adjustments to capture increased market share. This is an opportunity in disguise, and through this they can achieve economies of scale. Now, this also carries certain significant risks. If the condition be such that customers expect continuous discounts, then the sales teams will incentivize and often at times give unwarranted concessions, and this will potentially trigger destructive price wars because competitions may respond aggressively to this, and while you are matching the price or deeper price cuts are actually being given, industry wide profitability may just go into a tailspin, and that is something to be warded off. Now, these are the risks of strategic price cutting in detail. People will think you've actually reduced the quality. This is a big risk, and that may put people off also. So, consumers, like we spoke of before, associate price and value as equal and opposite, juxtaposed to each other. So, therefore, they perceive lower priced goods as inferior. So, the psychological connection can severely erode the brand equity and market positioning which you have painstakingly created, and it requires substantial time and investment to reverse once established in the marketplace that your quality has dropped. So, that is something which one should very carefully look at. Then there are loyalty limitations as well. Price reductions predominantly attract price sensitive customers. Now, these people may not have a repeat purchase behavior, but they have very little brand allegiance. So, the LTV is rather short for these customers. So, once your price again goes back up to its normal level, you will see that these bargain seeking customers typically migrate to the lowest prices available. So, they do not really look at quality, but it also has a lot of people in that subset. So, higher customer turnover will definitely be observed, and this will undermine your efforts to create a stable loyal customer base, because the person who has already paid top dollar for your product, they will feel cheated, and that is a risk which you also arrive, and they may go elsewhere. So, that actually may hamper your sustainable growth. So, use strategic price cutting as a reward rather than a market share gaming activity. So, you use it as reward and not to gain market share incrementally, because you will have problems going further, and the competitive retaliation is part of that problem. So, competitors will respond with aggressive price cuts of their own, and they will create more aggressive discounting measures and trigger that devastating price war which everybody fears, and this will hamper the entire industry, and you will be painted as the black sheep. So, organizations with deeper financial reserves will also outperform you, and they will have deeper pockets to manage and tide that particular financial crisis better. So, they can structurally lower costs, maintaining decisive advantages in if these get protracted and the pricing conflict keeps going on for a longer period of time. Strategic price increases are the reverse of this. You can actually see that about 3% profit margins are achieved better, and just with a 1% price increase. This gives a modest adjustment to pricing, and you can see total 33% profit improvement, which is the resultant of all this as you are going about. So, for example, consider a business operating with a standard 3% margin profit. They increase it by 1%. The company experiences 33% boost in profits. So, context wise, if say the product is priced at $10 and 970 is what the actual cost is and 30 cents is the profit, that is a 3% margin. You increase it just by 10 cents. So, that gives you 1% adjustment. Now, it is 40 cents per unit, and that delivers substantial 33% profit enhancement, because that 1% is a third of the 30 cents you have already been making on the product without requiring any operational changes, and everything else stays exactly the way it was. Here, escalating input costs necessitate at times that you strategically upward revise your price, because there could be inflation across materials, labor, operations, and these keep eroding the profit margins, and they do not offset by productivity improvements, because these are bound to happen. Inflation is a reality. So, organizations typically put in anticipatory pricing strategies, systematically raising prices beyond immediate cost pressures, and create these buffers for a rainy day. And they look at projected inflation and potential regulatory constraints which may come up in the future. This safeguards their long-term profitability and keeps them competition wise, positioning wise, they keep themselves at a premium in dynamic markets. What factors drive price increases? You will see cost inflation, which is the obvious one. You have got anticipatory pricing, which we just discussed, and then there is excess demands at times. So, it becomes profitable to actually put out more of the same goods, because people are willing to pay that particular price. And if you want to finally do value recapture, here if you adjust your pricing structures to properly reflect enhanced customer benefits, because here you are giving a logical understanding of why you have pushed the price up. You will do it through product improvements, new features, strategic repositioning, and you are asking for fair compensation for that. So, then in that case, customers will reward you with that value which you are seeking, but you have to make them see your point of view on this. So, you will also get the most valuable customer segments and generate optimal revenue from all these, even with constrained resources. So, this requires careful communication that emphasizes customer value rather than showing that you just want more profit. So, that is the way brand loyalty and marketplace trust are not disturbed, and yet you gain the kind of profitability that you want. Now, here if you see, negative perception is the first thing that is a resultant of a price increase. Acceptance is next, but only to about a quarter of the people. Brand switching is prevalent, people will switch, these are the price sensitive people, and a positive reception is very few and far between, because some people who are the premiumness seekers will always be the smallest sliver of the audience, they will see it positively. But negative by far outpaces everybody else in this particular space. Data revealed that 58% of consumers respond negatively to price increases. So, that is a huge number, close to almost 60%. And this interprets the organization as opportunistic or unjustified, and there is widespread resistance, there is a high profile backlash, and Coca-Cola has actually done this to give smart vending machines that raises prices during hot weather, and Amazon's dynamic pricing experiment that varied costs based on customer behaviors. Both initiatives triggered immediate media criticism because they were seen as profit seekers and they were fleecing people. So, and consumer outrage was obviously the other result of it, and it underscored the reputational risks of being perceived to be exploitative, and that was the choice which these brands did and then had to retract their steps. So, how do you respond to competitor price changes? Because you have to analyze the competitor motivation. What could it have been that actually resulted in the competition raising prices. Now, it's not always the case that you are the one raising prices, your competition has. So, you need to uncover what their strategic intent was. Why did they change their pricing? And was it to seek more market share? Was it utilizing more capacity at optimal levels? Or was there more cost structure adaptation happening? Or did they want to create an industry price leadership pattern? So, all of these things you have to understand, and therefore, you will be able to understand what the next moves could be in that particular direction. Understanding this will help you analyze and come up with your own solution and assess how long this will going to last. So, temporary tactical maneuvers, which could be short term promotions, and fundamental strategic repositioning will have lasting impact. So, both things are very, very separate. You need to understand which way is it swinging. Then you have to calculate the impact of non-response. So, what if you choose not to respond? Does it mean that customers keep coming at you? Does it mean that you lose your positioning? All of these things are parts of the consideration which you need to understand if you keep at your current pricing levels. You have to evaluate your customer segment reactions and competitor follow on behavior, because you will then understand what all else do they have in plan, and you will have to determine whether maintaining the price stability represents the strategic patience or it is going to be dangerous because you have not acted. And there will be chain reaction. So, once there is chain reaction, it will become uncontrollable. So, you need to understand scenario models that map competitor responses to your potential pricing decisions. You have responded to them. What do they do as a counter after? This decision tree forecasts market outcomes for each strategic option, helping you identify the optimal path that balances between short-term defense along with long-term competitive positioning. So, both ways you have to wait out. This is where the strategic business mapping will give you an indication of the way your immediate competition and the overall industry is headed. Now, how do you again on the other hand respond to low cost competitors? Here you will see there is product differentiation from your side which you can speak of, and once you do this, Apple does it very, very well. So, you will see that you have got distinctive features, superior quality, exceptional service, and compelling brand equity that just becomes a reason for you to pose as the premium player. And somebody trying to undercut on price will also have to remember that they are crushing their profitability at the same point in time. So, this strategy thrives when customers clearly understand how you add value to the entire offering set vis-a-vis your competition. If you've got a low cost venture, then they can strategically launch separate budget oriented brands or product lines and capture price sensitive market segments. Apple again has done this. They've done it through their SE, through their C and E variants which they have launched for their iPhones. And this helps protect their premium offerings which they kept at their particular price point, but they made an separate opening door for other segments to walk in into the brand experience, cultivating them for future upgradation as well. So, all of these things were part of that. Cost restructuring is also something which you can think of, because here you have to radically transform the business model itself. This is far more deep rooted, far more expensive, and you have to look at operational excellence, supply chain optimization and technological innovation all put together so that you do not miss out on the opportunity presented here. In terms of rapid response requirements, you have to quickly assess the situation first, what changes are happening, what are the competitor actions, what are the market shifts and the business implications potentially that will happen. Whether you want to act or whether you do not want to react, all of these aspects have to be analyzed and simulated. Similarly, this response option evaluation will give you carefully balanced immediate defensive needs with long-term strategic positioning to understand which way you want to swing so that you keep your competitive advantage intact. In terms of decision making and implementation, you will find that response choices are there and you have to execute them swiftly through designated channels which the organization decides upon. You have customer facing teams to deliver consistent and precise messaging about why you have made that particular pricing adjustment. And finally, you also keep the feedback loop open. So, you monitor, you adjust, you calibrate as things go on, tracking market reactions and maintaining the flexibility and adapt modifications to the competitive environment and see what new intelligence that emerges from this entire scenario helps you with. So, all these factors are part of the consideration set. You can also look at sales incentives as strategic marketing tools. Now, what is a sales incentive? It is a promotional tactic accelerating purchase decisions and driving increased volume for targeted products or services. Now, primary targets are the end consumers and strategic channel partners who partner with you to have the sale concluded, and therefore, the distribution network, retailers, wholesalers and distributors coming into play. You have growing formats which also help you. So, digital coupons, interactive QR code, loyalty app and data driven personal promotions which are through retargeting or remarketing, all of these factors can be looked into for this. What are the advantages of doing it? You actually can measure how much your sales has actually accelerated basis what your activity was. And if you've got inventory, how well the inventory is getting utilized and how are you interacting with competitive positioning as well and looking at acquiring more new customers. What are the challenges here? You will get a very unclear impact duration. It will be ephemeral at best and you will have heightened price sensitivity, because at the end of the day, even the most solid customer will at one point in time finally go and have some sort of price sensitivity for sure. If you're going downward, then the premium brand value that you may have created, that equity will get eroded and there will be disruptive stockpiling behaviors, because you'll have to maintain the inventory to ensure the demand is met. Sales promotion budgets have actually expanded as a percentage of total marketing investments as we've gone forward, and even digital incentive mechanisms have come about which are giving unprecedented growth. Now, there are promotional platforms that eliminate the physical production costs or minimize the environmental footprint, and instead you have instant tactical adjustments and consistently you are able to deliver redemption rates 2 to 3 times higher than traditional print alternatives if you use digital. Modern retailers now harness a lot of sophisticated consumer data analytics and create hyper personalized incentives because they know everything almost about the end consumer. You tailor your approach towards individual purchasing patterns and preferences, creating relevant and impactful promotional strategies, and you drive immediate revenue and balance short-term sales acceleration against potential long-term consequences on brand equity and customer price expectations as well. Short-term impact of promotions once announced will accelerate as customers anticipate upcoming price incentives and strategically plan their purchases. When the promotion is active, sales surge dramatically during the promotional window as the price sensitive customers respond to the time limited opportunities. Past the promotion, you will see a dip in sales because pre-promotion levels will return and consumers work through their stockpiled inventory and postpone any additional purchases of your product, and then it will gradually return to the baseline and you will see pre-promotion patterns come up with minimal sustained category volume growth. So, this will give you a spurt of action and then it will climb back to exactly where it started from. The impact of promotions on brand perception are also important to be understood. First, there will be brand building promotions. So, you will have loyalty programs kick in, you will have feature specific coupons and product enhancing premiums that strategically reinforce the brand value into the entire thing, and it is not mere price reduction. Then you have neutral promotions where you carefully orchestrate limited time offers and predictable seasonal discounts. This preserves the brand integrity and deploy very clearly with strategic intent and disciplined restraint, and it is very short, very limited and quickly in and out, that is all. Then there are promotions which actually erode the brand positioning also. This gives irrelevant giveaways, continuous rebates, and this trains the customers, their mind shifts and they question the fundamental value of the full service offerings also, and the overall equity can erode. The long term impact is therefore the profound and lasting influence of promotional strategies on customer price expectations and vis-a-vis the quality perception, because both things, like we discussed, go hand in hand. And so therefore now they will showcase how the willingness to pay premium prices for it in the future are going to be. And if you keep more and more discounts happening, the addiction will start to play out. Discount, once initially given, will give strategic price reductions and stimulate sales volume, counter competitive pressures, or clear excess inventory. But the customer expectation shift will definitely happen if you do it for long. So they will strategically delay their purchases until the next discount appears. So they will start seeking those discounts, and as and when you put them up, they will establish that psychological pattern to look at discount dependent purchasing behavior rather than look for it in a regular purchase cycle. Then the price integrity of your product and brand will erode, and your perceived value will obviously collapse. So all of these factors come into play and can hurt your entire pricing model. Net price therefore will be hugely affected. The list price may be very high, but when you give a small average discount and you spend promotional content on it, and there is some co-opted advertising at the retailer's end, this will be the actual reduced realized price at the retail sale level. So for example, if you've got a $3,000 item and ultimately it will yield only $2,100, striking that 30% reduction happens, that $300 goes off, then promotional allocations of $450 also go off, and if you contribute to that co-op, then you give $150 to the retailer. So that is the kind of bite away from your overall profitability that you will see. Now you have to therefore incentivize the entire thing, and you have to set objectives of why you are doing the incentives. So you accelerate purchase frequency amongst the existing customer base, you elevate average purchase quantities and overall order value, you get them to try your product out first, and you get more prospective customers into the fold, and you strategically convert your competitors' customers to your brand ecosystem. And here, if you are doing your job right, then the consumer incentives become a harmonious balance between immediate revenue acceleration and enduring brand equity cultivation. The retailer also gets some benefit out of it. They secure premium placement for new products across retail channels, because these products are then expected to fly off the shelves, and this helps them keep inventory better, so that the distribution partner actually is on your side and stocking more of your product. You gain advantageous shelf positions and you get featured in promotional displays, and the retailer alignment commitment gives you strategic pricing initiatives and empowers your sales associate to sell for better, and that gives them a reason to prioritize your offerings over whatever else is happening from competitor size. Typically an MBO, which is a multi-brand outlet, you will see this even more so. Now, how do you define your incentive parameters? You determine what size are you operating upon. You have to be substantial enough to drive action, yet modest enough to preserve profitability. When your participation are being looked at, you have to see whether it is universal or targeted to specific segments, and your direct impact campaign efficiency is measured here. Targeted incentives, they will focus resources for maximum impact and require sophisticated segmentation capabilities, which you will have to build into it. The duration will define how immediate sales acceleration and brand equity preservation are both balanced. Do it for longer and you run the risk of losing the latter. Now, in terms of distribution channels, you will have your channel selection where product packaging, in-store displays, direct mail, digital platforms, advertising, each will determine how much reach you get and how many redemption rates you are able to define. This will access distinct customer segments, but they will also have varying response patterns because each will decide in their own way. So, you will be able to therefore precisely target high value opportunities, because you will get that particular data from the end mile consumer. Now, you need to understand push versus pull promotion. Push strategy means you push your product down the channel and your partners actually push these into the consumer's hand, whereas consumer pull relates directly to consumer asking for your product or service by name. So, that is the reverse of it. You need to have a balanced approach, because synchronizing this dual strategy will give you a good amount of push as well as pull, ensuring people are asking for you by name. So, retailers are happy stocking your product and also pushing it further. So, it is a self-sufficing loop, and you allocate your resources accordingly. So, your strategic investment is across both methodologies, and you are putting your budgets to the right kind of use. Now, how do you integrate a push-pull approach? Apple has always had a balanced strategy in this regard. They generate consumer demand through compelling brand storytelling and groundbreaking product design. Simultaneously, they are invested in precisely crafted retail environments which exude the same kind of design logic that their products have, and they give rigorous staff training, so that staff is absolutely on the ball. Coca-Cola again has this dual approach, where they drive consumer demand through potentially powerful global advertising campaigns and provide retailers with comprehensive merchandising support. They give them these cooling displays, they give promotional incentives, a variety of things are given to them. Nike also integrates its channel in this way. They market featuring through various elite athletes. So, the aspirational value is built there, and equip retailers with advanced display systems, so that they are able to showcase the product in its glory. They have in-depth product training for the sales staff and tailored promotional programs for the end consumer as well. So, they each in their own unique way are doing this to ensure more offtakes and better traction. Now, consumer incentive tools, when you look at price reductions, you will see that in the case of a direct price cut, a digital coupon, a print coupon, and a mail in rebate, your prices keep going up. So, it depends on where and how the redemption is also happening, is the method from which your final price will go down for each particular instance as such. Now, when you look at consumer incentive tools, you get coupons and refunds, which are very popular. Coupons have certain characteristics. They are strategically targeted through direct mail or various other similar campaigns. You can get them through SMS, nowadays QR code, a variety of these things exist. And there is integrated product packaging at times. So, it is an on pack or in pack kind of promotion at times. You get print media advertisements or display in billboards or on TV, etc., and you get emails and various other ways to reach people. You have got engaging websites where the landing of the marketing call to action takes them, and you also can use mobile applications to keep the captive audience working with that. Cash refunds, consumers must submit proof of how and where they have purchased that particular product. Reimbursements arrive in some sort of transfer method or reimbursement method, or you can get actually a rebate of your next purchase, and consistently offer higher value propositions than standard coupons. The redemption rates remain relatively low due to the consumer effort that is required to get this done. This enables manufacturers to accelerate inventory turnover without compromising the established price points. When you look at price packs and premiums, when you create a price pack, you reduce your price packs by enhancing value packages, highlighting promotional advantages. So, 20% more product at a regular price, or banded packs, where you actually talk about paired complementary products. So, you get a toothbrush bundled with your toothpaste for comprehensive oral care. On the other hand, when you are looking at premiums, in pack strategically place something concealed within the product packaging for discovery excitement. On pack, you give them something to increase visibility and immediate appeal. Near pack, you display strategically adjacent to products to influence the purchase decision, and then you get certain stuff which is free in the mail. So, that comes in as separate, but it is disjointed from the product, may not create any amount of recall for the product as well. And consumer incentive tools wise, if you look at frequency and engagement programs, you have got entry tiers where you have given basic rewards for program involvement, and advanced tiers where you get better benefits for active participants. But then there is an exclusive tier where the most valuable customers get rewarded. Always remember that incentivization is something which works with time inversely. So, the lower the time, the more basic the incentivization, and the higher the time spent with the brand, the more value, and hence the delayed gratification gives you higher benefits. So, this is the change that you will see overall. Now, when you look at cross promotions and financing, if you've got tie-in promotions, you're simply tying up your product with another product or your brand with another, and you're making a bundle. And then there are seasonal discounts which are expected, which everybody in the market is doing. So, you may look forward to getting the price sensitive customer in at this point. And then there are financing options for high-end elements, and people can consume this over time through deferred payment plans, EMIs and such like, and that makes it easier to purchase and own a particular product. Now, when you incentivize trade, what you do is you give them promotional allowances so that they can actually set up their own promotions from various points in time. You give them free merchandise. Free merchandise helps them to get at no cost some sort of intermediaries who purchase predetermined quantities or prominently showcase specific product lines. So, it is a benefit that you are driving to them. So, you get buy 10 and get 1 free. If you have got a price off, then it is a straight off discount, and then you have got payment discounts where you commonly restructure as 2 out of 10 net 30, which provides a 2% discount for payments received within 10 days and require a full payment within 30 days. So, that is how the cash collection really works in this case. There are certain challenges here also. Forward buying, when you want retailers to stockpile discounted products during promotions, that is something has to be pushed. Then there is diversion, where you get opportunistic retailers who purchase promoted products in discount markets and redistribute in non-promotional regions. So, this grey market activity undermines your strategic geographic pricing initiatives. Then trade consumer balance is something you have to also deal with, where there is internal conflict which arises between sales teams in expanded trade promotions and brand managers advocating for consumer focused marketing reinvestments. You have to resolve this quickly and ensure the strategic alignment of short term sales objectives is clear with brand term equity goals. Performance verification also ensures that more sophisticated tracking systems are there to ensure the intended returns happen. Sales force incentives can actually help push this. 25 billion in annual spending gives you a 21% performance lift and almost double ROI rate, which can increase the incentive investment responses. So, this is how you will actually end up creating an integrated pricing strategy. The most sustainable pricing frameworks will depend on products mix decisions, price adjustment mechanisms and sales incentives, so that the entire cohesive system meets your strategic business objectives. So, next time around we will be taking up a few promotional and pricing based case studies to expand into this subject further. Until then, this is me signing off.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. We usually know William Shakespeare as the most revered figure in the history of English literature. But we often tend to forget that he has also been one of the most hated figures in literature. And here I'm not talking only about those boys and girls who have to memorize long sections from Macbeth or King Lear or Julius Caesar before they can go and sit for their school or college exams. But I'm also talking about people who are themselves quite famous authors. Tolstoy, for instance, considered the writings of Shakespeare to be, and I quote, crude, immoral, vulgar and senseless. George Bernard Shaw absolutely loathed Shakespeare, as he did Homer. But perhaps no other criticism about Shakespeare is more damaging than the one which says that Shakespeare is a marvelous storyteller, provided someone has told him the story earlier. Now, this piece of criticism is particularly damaging because it is true. None of Shakespeare's plays contain any original story whatsoever. They are all written using pre-existing materials, pre-existing stories. Now, does that diminish the stature of Shakespeare as a dramatist? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. See you in the next episode of Literary Snippets.